This is the Locked On Jets podcast on this Tuesday. I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com, and there is this idea that is going through the Jets fan base today that the Jets should bring back Rex Ryan. I'm here to tell you it's a bad idea. Now, as far as I can tell, this whole thing got started with a radio interview Rex did earlier in the week, and he openly campaigned for the Jets head coaching job. Jets are looking for a new head coach. They'll hire somebody this offseason, and Rex was on the radio, kind of pushing himself as a candidate for the job. And then he ended by saying, well, I'm not campaigning for the job after doing just that. And this thing has kind of picked up steam today because Joe Beningo, a host at WFAN, a very popular Jets fan at WFAN and a very influential host, has said that he wants Rex Ryan to come back. And look, I love Joe Beningo. He's a great listen. He's been appointment radio through his career. After Jets losses, his rants are epic. A guy who has a lot of passion for this team. Nobody's going to question Joe Beningo's credentials as a Jets fan. But if I'm looking for ideas on how to create the building blocks of a winning franchise, I don't think Joe Beningo is the guy I'm going to turn to. And I think that if you're a Jets fan who likes the idea of Rex Ryan coming back, hear me out. I think that you're answering the wrong question. I think the question you're answering is, did I like the job Rex Ryan did in 2009 and 2010? And the answer for most Jets fans, myself included, is absolutely. That was a really special time for this Jets fan base. It was a really exciting time for this Jets fan base. The Jets went to back-to-back AFC championship games in Rex Ryan's first 2 years. This team almost made the Super Bowl. This team stood toe-to-toe with the Brady Belichick Patriots. I mean, if you think about the 2 decades of the Brady Belichick era, there were really only 2 points where it felt like the Jets were close to their level. One was in the Herm Edwards era, the early days of Chad Pennington, when Pennington was playing at a really high level before all the injuries. The other was when Rex Ryan was the head coach of this team those first 2 years. That will always have a special place in my heart. I mean, I remember when the Jets fired Eric Mangini. It was my first year of writing at GangGreenNation.com. And at that point, the guy everybody wanted was Bill Cowher, because Cowher had just a couple of years ago stepped away from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and there was a thought in the NFL that he was eventually going to come back to the league. Cowher had a lot of success with the Steelers, done a great job with them, building them into a perennial power, and won a Super Bowl. But I wrote an article that if the Jets could not get Bill Cowher, Rex Ryan was my guy, because I loved his acumen on the defensive side of the ball. I loved his attitude. And those first 2 years, everything played out great. And Rex Ryan will always have a special place in my heart. I'm sure Rex Ryan will always have a special place in your heart for those 2 years, especially considering what followed after it, because it's been a very difficult road for New York Jets fans. But the relevant question, is not whether those years were special. It's not whether Rex Ryan did a great job in those years. It's not whether we appreciate what Rex Ryan did in 2009 and 2010. The question is, who is the best coach to lead the Jets into 2025? And I'm not saying this next thing to be provocative. It's how I really feel. Rex Ryan returning as the New York Jets head coach next year is the worst idea of the year. And I don't think it's an exaggeration. And I fully acknowledge we've seen a lot of bad ideas this year for the Jets. We're living the consequences of a lot of bad ideas that the Jets have acted on this year. But I don't think there's any worse than the idea of Rex Ryan returning as coach of this team. Now, let me ask you the following, because the Jets are going to have a lot of candidates who are going to interview for this job. You're going to hear a lot of names floated. Some will be serious, some will not. But if I told you that there was a candidate who in 8 seasons as a head coach had a 61-66 record, if I told you that he has not coached on any level, either as an assistant or a head coach in the last 8 years. Now, think about all the changes that have taken place in the game of football, especially in the NFL over the last 8 years. When you talk about the way players are, the way they train, nutrition, player tracking equipment in practice, not to mention all the schematic changes of the last 8 years, the rise of the run-pass option, all of these things. Think about a coach who hasn't been there for all of that. Again, a coach with a 61-66 record in his career, a guy who hasn't coached on any level in 8 years, a coach it's been 14 years since he was the head coach of a team with a winning record. And his last 6 years of head coach, he had a losing record and missed the playoffs. Now, let me take it a step further. Imagine that this coach was viewed as a defensive genius. If this is your selling point, this coach is a defensive genius. But it's been 14 years Again, 14 years since he coached a defense that was top 10 in scoring. And I'll take it a step further. Imagine you're a team looking for discipline. Your team's been really undisciplined on both sides of the ball. If this coach in his 8 years as head coach, 4 times his team finished in the top 10 in penalties, would you have any interest in this guy if his name wasn't Rex Ryan? This is a blind taste test right now, because those first 2 years are really good. And they're on Rex's record, and we'll always remember them fondly. But what's come since then? That's not a guy I think anybody would want as a head coach. And I think the arguments for Rex are really about those first 2 years. Well, those first 2 years were a really, really long time ago. I mean, 2009, 2010. It's 2024. It'll be 2025 when he takes over as the head coach of this team, if it happens. And the other thing is, like, the next 6 years happened. And I think that there are specific reasons Rex Ryan succeeded those first 2 years. It did not match that level of success the next 6. And I think the reasons he did not match the level of success the next 6 are more relevant to the job the 2025 Jets coach will have than those first 2 years are. And I'll explain what I mean as we continue here on this special Tuesday edition of Locked On Jets. This episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Right now, the Jets are home underdogs against the Houston Texans. They will play on Thursday Night Football. Jeff Ulbrich will be the head coach in that game. The Jets started the week as 1.5-point favorites, but the line has moved to Houston. I think the line realizes that this Jets team really isn't that good after their loss in New England. Well, FanDuel.com is the place to get in on the action. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Of course, we're talking about the Jets coaching search today. Maybe the Jets should look for their new head coach on LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn's not just a jobs board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. And on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and may not have the time or resources to hire, so LinkedIn is constantly finding new ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. It's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, a special edition on this Tuesday, talking about the idea that's going through the fan base today about bringing back Rex Ryan as the head coach. Of course, you probably remember Rex Ryan was the head coach for an eventful 6-year period from 2009 to 2014. And there is some support for the idea of bringing Rex back in the fan base. I'm here to tell you it's a bad idea. It's a really bad idea. The expression "you can't go home again" comes to mind. So many times you see these reunions in sports, and occasionally it works, but more often it leads to disappointment because you can't recreate the conditions that led to success the first time. And in the case of Rex Ryan, there was only success the first 2 years. The final 4 years with the Jets and his 2 years with Buffalo were very unsuccessful. And I think it's worth examining why that is, because there were conditions in place those first 2 years that I think suited Rex perfectly. And you're looking for a guy who is the right person to lead you through the specific set of conditions the Jets have currently when you look for the head coach for 2025. Now, think about where the Jets were at the end of the 2008 season. Of course, most people remember that as the Brett Favre season. So, there's some overlap here, is that we've traded for a Packers future Hall of Fame quarterback, and it's completely failed. So we fire our head coach. Eric Mangini was fired after the 2008 season, and Rex Ryan was brought in. But you have to remember that was a team with a lot of veteran leadership, and that was a team that was maybe not suited very well for a coach like Eric Mangini. A team with a lot of veterans on it these guys know what they're doing. They want to be treated like professionals. They don't want somebody who's kind of a taskmaster as a head coach. And Mangini was that. And Rex came in and was kind of a breath of fresh air because Rex always had the attitude that he's just going to let his guys do what they want. And when you have a team of veterans, that works because those are the guys. Those are like the honor students. If you're a teacher in school, these are the honor students. These are the guys you don't have to push to do their homework. They're going to do everything that's required to get ready, to prepare for a week. And there's veteran leadership in the locker room. You had guys like Tony Richardson and Damian Woody on this team. If there were any issues that flared up in the locker room, the coaches didn't really need to handle it because you had veterans in place who were able to step in and deal with anything that came up. And beyond that, Rex runs a very complicated system. So you need veterans, you need guys who have been around the league for a while to be able to execute it effectively. After 2010, those veterans started to fade. Those veterans started to leave the roster. Some of them retired. Some of them, were injured and, had to leave the game like Damian Woody. And the Jets started losing that infrastructure. And they needed a coach to step in and kind of fill some of that void. They needed a coach to maybe be a little bit harder on the players. They needed a guy who could develop talent. And that's where Rex Ryan failed. And the team got progressively worse during his tenure because that infrastructure he inherited fell apart. And he was not able to adapt to what the Jets needed. And in today's NFL, you can't stick with a veteran team for very long. This is a league that's a young players league. Teams build through the draft. And this Jets team in 2025, it certainly looks like we're going to be starting yet another rebuild. Another thing about Rex Ryan is that, we always hear this is a passing league. It was a passing league. It was becoming a passing league when Rex was the Jets head coach. It's even more of a passing league than the last time he coached in it. And in 8 years as a head coach, his teams had an above average passing efficiency only once in 8 years. So I think that there are a lot of arguments to be made that Rex Ryan is just not the right coach for this team right now. I think there are a lot of arguments to be made that the conditions that led Rex Ryan to have success in 2009 and 2010 do not exist for this team right now. You'll need somebody who can come in and build an offense. You need somebody who can come in and develop young players. Rex Ryan didn't really do that in his tenure. He inherited a veteran team, and he did. I don't want to say that Rex Ryan won with Eric Mangini's players because I don't think that's. I always hate that argument when people use it for the new coach because you know what? If Eric Mangini won with Eric Mangini's players, Rex Ryan wouldn't be here. Rex Ryan did a better job with Eric Mangini's players than Eric Mangini did. But it's also true that once that infrastructure started leaving the team, Rex Ryan was not able to bridge the gap. He was not able to make up the difference. And the team that the Jets will be fielding in 2025 resembles those teams from 2011 to 2014 a lot more than they'll resemble the 2009 and 2010 teams. Sometimes a coach has the right attributes you're looking for a specific roster. Rex Ryan was the perfect coach for those Jets teams in 2009 and 2010. He was not the perfect coach beyond that. And the situation the Jets are in right now does not really resemble that 2009-2010 team very much. And I just don't think he's the right coach going forward. I think it's a really bad idea. You know what? It reminds me of going back to your ex. And yeah, like occasionally that ends up working out, but more often you're romanticizing the past. You're forgetting about what all the problems were that led to the breakup. And I think that's what's happening right now with this fan base. So yeah, we remember the last time the Jets were good, Rex was the coach. And again, Rex will always have a special place in my heart. This is not about me disliking Rex Ryan. It's just about looking at the situation and saying, you know what, just because this guy had success 14, 15 years ago, that doesn't mean he's going to have the same success today. It doesn't mean he's got the attributes you're looking for today. So I think the Jets really need to look in another direction here. And I think I cannot endorse this idea that's being floated today that Rex Ryan is the right coach for the Jets. Anyway, thank you for tuning into this special edition of Locked On Jets. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. If you're new to the show, we have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday. If you like what you see on YouTube or here on a podcast source, please give it a big thumbs up or subscribe or give it a 5-star review. We'll chat again tomorrow. Tomorrow's our mailbag show. Each Wednesday we try to do a mailbag, so send in your questions. I can't wait to answer them.